All right.
We are back. We are back. And we have an old friend with us, Mark Levy.
Mark Levy. Mark Levy.
Where's Mark Levy? Yeah.
You can have. Yeah.
You know Mark Levy?
I know Mark. Boy, do I know. Where's Mark Levy? Mark Levy.
My work wife, my ex-work wife right there, okay?
Yeah, don't be talking at me. I had to come over to not see you when you live like down the street from me. But do you write? Do you call?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. You just don't answer because you're too busy feeding your cats.
Sorry. We're going to take care of the story. We'll see her in a bit. Come on, wrestling. Hey, you're closing this thing out for us. We're going to be doing a little Q&A afterward, but it's great to have you here. And anytime I see math, the C student in me immediately bristles up. So what do you got for us?
Well, let's see here. Let's make sure we can get this thing to work right. One of the cool things about the pandemic is most of us learn to use all these different presentation tools, and you got to remember which one is which, but I think we're good to go. First off, fellas, thank you very, very much. It's appreciative that you had me on here. And those of you that are paying attention, I hope you'll reach out to your state broadcast associations and thank them too, because without their support, you wouldn't have had this. So one of the things that... Yeah.
Mark, before we turn it over to you, we're all having discussions about, what to go and who to put where. And so as you can see, Mark's our anchor this afternoon. So Mark's going to be the anchor and lead us into our final Q&A. So no, Mark, we appreciate you doing it, brother.
Yeah, you know what an anchor does? It drags everything down.
No.
All right.
All right. It's yours to fly. Thanks.
Hey, it's all yours.
We'll see you
on the
other side.
All right. Well, let's see if this thing works here. Okay. Yeah, it does. One of the things that I always prayed for when I was in school was that the last class of the day did not have to be math, because I was tired and then I had to concentrate, and I would pray greatly, do not let me have to have Mr. Palusak last class of the day. Well, for those of you that have stuck around here, we're going to talk math, but we're going to talk about it being very, very important, because it is. A lot of businesses out there today are not as much interested in growing their business as they are defending it. And if you have money in the stock market, you understand that. When the stock market went from 36,000 down to 2,800, people were lined up on the bridge to jump, but it was because they were so worried about keeping that which they worked so hard to get. So we're going to talk about using ROI to help you not only grow your business, but to defend your business by helping your clients defend their business. So, Brian, I'm going to try to do something here. I'm actually going to turn my video off. Hope nobody cares about that, because I'm having trouble. Yes, we're going to hide the thumbnail video. Okay, there we go. I don't know if you guys like Antiques Roadshow, but I do. And Antiques Roadshow makes me sick because I see how much money people paid for things that we threw out. And I love their definition of return on investment. It's what one should expect to gain in return for an expenditure of time, effort, and or money. Now, notice they said time and effort first. The word should is important to the definition, as what one pays for something is not always an indication of its value. The value, as you might expect, lies in the eyes of the beholder. And that's why some of you would go like, Levy, you're absolutely nuts that you paid that much money for a Tama Art Star 5x14 maple snare drum, because it looks just like a lot of other drums. Just look at it. But if you're a drummer like I am, it has a special sound, and it has much more value to me than it might to some of you on this call. All right, let's hit the advanced key. So why is there such emphasis on ROI now? Well, there's more competition for ad dollars than there ever has before. Now, some of you know that I do a lot of work with political advertising sales. And when I tell you that there is more competition, just within 2 weeks, digital political spending fragmentation grew exponentially, because now both Reddit and Spotify, who never carried political advertising in the past, are now going to carry it. So as you know, and whoever sells political advertising for your stations, when they're talking to candidates and talking to people about issue advertising, that's something we're now going to have to talk about. There's a greater sense of fiscal responsibility brought on by Wall Street. Now, part of me laughs about that because, I don't really know how fiscally responsible Wall Street itself is, but everybody's watching the bottom line. There is fear on the client side of making a mistake. What if I invest my money someplace and it tanks? I don't know. Some people call this the end of the entrepreneurial spirit. No one wants to take a chance on anything anymore. And you know what? Clients smell the fear on us too. And I can tell you how I know that. They tell me. Like a lot of the other folks that you had on Rising Up already, I make calls. In fact, I'm in New Hampshire today. And I talk to them and they'll say, you know what? No one ever calls us in the middle of the flight to see if it's working because we're hoping and we're praying that it is, but we are too afraid to call a client in the middle of a flight to see if everything is working the way it should. Now, if you understand how to use ROI, it can help with all of these 5 major objections. And my ex-work wife, Brandis Hall, and I used to put this slide up a lot, and I'm sorry, I still use it because I like it. But one of the things I want you to keep focusing on is defending business as opposed to growing it. I will tell you this, and we ran into this today. There are a number of clients out there that will not spend a dime to grow their business. They don't want to grow their business. They're happy with the status quo. However, if you take them an idea that will help them defend their business from someone who wants to take it from them, an online giant, someone from a larger market, a new competitor coming in, and show them that the ROI can help them defend their business, I have to tell you, you have a leg up on your competitors. Now, I've got good news and I've got bad news. The good news is if you use it correctly, especially with certain types of people and in certain types of sales situations, ROI can be a fantastic tool to help a client feel like they're reducing the risk before they do business with us. And you know what? You can feel more comfortable too. I laugh a lot because Darren's swagger stuff is all over. In fact, I think there's even a swagger deodorant. Yeah, there is, because I was going to send it, but he smells good enough. But, when you walk in knowing that you know what you know, and you're confident about that, that in and of itself is going to help you feel confident you're offering a good schedule that's going to provide ROI for the client. Now, that's the good news. The bad news is it isn't as simple as pulling out a calculator and saying, the numbers say you should see a big increase, because we've heard this expression before, and I don't really know that we pay as much attention to it as we should, but it's true. If you live by the math, you die by the math with ROI, because there are a lot of different variables. However, ROI can help you set some benchmarks that will help you be more comfortable talking to your advertisers about what works and what doesn't work. Now, I mentioned that there are certain types of individuals who really like ROI, equations and math and things of that nature. And these are people that are oftentimes in tighter control of their emotions and more focused on tasks. And, there's the DISC profile, has a certain name for them. There's a profile that uses animals. I'm old school. So analyticals and drivers who want to see the numbers. ROI can be really beneficial when you're talking to these people. Not that it can't be beneficial when you're talking to amiables and expressives, but these two right here are really strong in their value of ROI. Now, you can get your clients to help you provide ROI. And I've been blessed to be on Rising Up a couple of times. And some of you people say, well, leave you like a broken record. Well, I am. But if you don't have video testimonials of your clients talking about how great it is when they invest their money with you, that they get a good return on their investment when they work with you. I have to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, you are missing a bunch of potential money that's out there. So I would beg you to please get some video testimonials, put them on your phone. And when people say, I don't know if I would get a good return from your stations, let your clients do the heavy lifting. Some of you know I used to be a jockey. I'm ate my way out of the saddle, but I'm still not real big. And I'm certainly nobody that's going to challenge Arnold Schwarzenegger for strongman. So when it comes to heavy lifting, I want someone else to do it for me. And when I pull out my phone and say, it sounds like you're concerned about the ROI you would get with working with us, let me share with you what other people who do business with us say. And I hit play and 3 or 4 of those little video testimonials go through. Guess what? They're talking about the great ROI they get with me, and I don't have to as much. Now, yes, we're going to get to the spreadsheet. I promise you we're going to get to the spreadsheet, but a couple of questions. Have you really earned the right to talk about ROI with your clients? In other words, are you good at your job? Do your clients know if your property or properties work for them? Well, yeah, they know. Well, how do you know they know? Do you ever ask them? Again, so many people tell me, well, I'm so afraid to ask for a video testimonial because I don't know if it's working. And to me, that's a real doggone shame, because if you don't know what you're selling is working, the one thing I can tell you that you'll probably find out in a very unnice fashion is that people are going to say, no, it doesn't work. Do you ever ask your clients for their input, or are you afraid of what you might hear? A client telling me that, no, this isn't working, and they're thinking about moving the money. Oftentimes we find that out when they've called us and said, no, I'm not going to renew. I moved the money someplace else. Here we go, hit the button. So let's talk about some ROI examples and how part 1 of this spreadsheet can help you. Because, a lot of us forgetting, if you will, the Antiques Roadshow definition of what ROI is. These are a couple of real life examples. So a client buys a $975 schedule and gets back a total of $1,500. What's the ROI money and what's the ROI percent? Now, let's face it. Why did so many of us get in broadcasting? Because we weren't good at math and we didn't like math. And I don't like math, but I'm a lazy individual. So I created this for my team. And it is a spreadsheet. And this is the first tab. It's called the Simple ROI Calculator. And for those of you who are really big into mathematics, and there's probably some analyticals and drivers on here, here's how this puppy works. It has fill in the stuff, and you'll see when it works how this will work out. But ROI equals parentheses R minus I parentheses divided by 1 times 100. Well, what is R? R is money received after making the investment. I is the original investment. Or you can just go over here and fill in the yellow cells. So what was the initial ad investment? Sim salabim. What was the original ad investment? It was $975. What was the total dollars the client received back or lost, including the initial investment? Now, a lot of people, when they're talking about ROI, they somehow want to throw that initial investment under the bus. You can't do that. So the client got back a total of $1,500. The difference from the initial investment was $525. Their return on investment was 53, almost 54%. Not too shabby. But I want you to, if you're taking notes on something like this, and if you're not taking notes, nudge the person next to you and tell them to take this note. We need to listen to hear and not listen to respond, especially when it comes to ROI. Case in point, a client buys a 1,300 schedule and makes a $1,500 profit. What's the ROI numbers in terms of dollars and percent? Well, okay, the total initial ad investment was $1,300. Now, here's where we got to be careful. The total dollars a client received back or lost, including the initial investment, it wasn't just $1,500 back. It was $2,800 back. How much is that different from the initial investment? $1,500 or 115%. And that was pretty good. But a lot of times we are just too afraid to share this with the client. And the other thing that we probably could do better is in a customer needs analysis, an important question, which we'll get to, and that is how many times a year does the client come by? Because oftentimes we only seem to take credit for the initial sale. Well, once we get them in the store, if the client treats these people right, they'll come back. Wow. Levy, didn't you just say listen to hear and not to respond? Yes, but I'm old and I forget myself. So I put it back on there so I'll remember it again. You know, in this business, people lie. Okay, I'm sorry. One of the reasons the business is in the problems it's in is that clients lie, and sometimes we have told falsehoods, and clients will tell you, I expect a blank time ROI. And I'm going to beg you, don't take BS lying down. Stand up, have some backbone. I think it's important to ask, what type of return are your advertisers expecting with the schedules on your station and why? That's what you need to ask yourself. And here we go. Keep in mind that the business climate can change. A couple of years ago, we couldn't get out of the way of the money. Now things are a little bit more tight. The time of year. I can tell you that trying to sell fuel oil in July to save money for when it comes to buy fuel oil later in the year, it didn't really work so well for me. The thin market. Client's going to run a schedule with you and expects to sell $25 million homes. Well, guess what? There's not as many people in the market for a $25 million home as there are for jeans. That said, there are more people in the market for jeans, but there's more competition. These are things we need to bring out. Are we making a big enough investment to be significant? There's a young lady out there named Beth Mann, and I'll never forget her saying that. We have to ask for enough to be significant. We probably have the right target, but how many competitors does this person have? In the old days, we would go to the phone book and we would just say, wow, there's 25 different people that sell what you sell. And we all know that nobody uses the phone book. But you know what? Why not Google or why not Manta? How many different lawn and garden dealerships there are within a 25-mile area? And you're going to have a big list. And sometimes people forget that they have a lot of competition out there, and they forget about their online competition. And then again, the sales skills of the client staff. Once you send them in there, how good is the client staff in getting these people to buy something and not leave? So when I hear this, I expect a 10-time ROI. I just go look at them and say, that's interesting. What type of return are you getting on your stocks, retirement investments, gold, anything? Because if you're expecting just a 10-time ROI on that, I imagine you're getting much better on your stocks and bonds, right? Well, no, I'm not getting there as much. Well, then why not take all of that money and give it to me for advertising and let me see if I can get you a 10-time ROI? Well, I wouldn't do that. No, you wouldn't. And you know what? It's not fair to expect a 10-time ROI with me if you're not getting a 10-time ROI with your life savings. And sometimes we have to have the intestinal fortitude to say something like that. So submit it for your consideration. Would your answer be different about the ROI you would deliver if you ran fewer high-risk campaigns, better copy, higher frequency, better customer service? Could that help you reduce? And this is scary, ladies and gentlemen. The average broadcaster's turnover rate is 47% on accounts after being on the air for just 90 days. That's ugly. Okay, that's really bad, ugly. So Might we look at minimum schedules? I've worked with some station recently who will not let new clients go on the air without a minimum investment level. Now, if you want to add on schedules, that's fine. But they don't want to hear, I tried broadcasting and it didn't work. So they have a minimum dollar in their mind based on the response they've had from their clients. Wow, they ask clients, did the schedule work for you? And getting video testimonials. And it's like, okay, you want to be on our air? This is the minimum that you're going to be expected to invest. And we have great faith that this is going to work. Now, I think earlier today, you guys had, one of the all-time greats, Chris Lytle on. And Chris probably doesn't remember it, but he and I have done some sessions together. And, he's like Speed, he's like Darren, he's like Brandis, forgotten more about broadcast sales than most people will ever know. And years ago, and Chris, I stole this from you, but I adapted it, okay? So I'm giving you credit. Chris used to do this thing with a stamper where he'd put it together a schedule and he would, type stamp the client's name in, and anything they didn't want, they lined out. Well, this is a little bit different. And if you want this, I've got it on a spreadsheet, you can have it. This shows how many hours you cover if you do 24 spots a day, 7 days a week. And you can see that that's 168 commercials. Now, one of the things that bothers me a lot is I'll ask salespeople, how many times have you ever sold 168 commercials in a week? And it's very little. But every now and then I run into some salespeople that say, yeah, we've done this. And I'll ask them, how? And the answer is, we ask because we felt that this would be a good thing for the client to accomplish what they wanted to accomplish. And I'm certain somebody talked about, doing a good customer needs analysis because that's part of it. But this is all ROI. I'm much more comfortable promising a good ROI if I'm doing, 24 spots a day, 7 days a week. Now, here's what I like about this. Well, no, that's too much. Okay. Here's what happens if we cut this down to 84 spots a week. Now, you can see there's an awful lot of white space that starts to show up. There are hours that we're going to miss. Uh-oh. Let's cut this down even more. We've got 35. What is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can't read my own slider. You guys get it off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 times, we'd get 56 spots a week there. Okay, there we go. Thank you. Now we're going to go to the ubiquitous 35 spots a week. And in many cases, we consider that to be a heavy schedule. And then there's this. 25 spots a week. That's a big schedule. Well, television saying, well, that's the great thing about TV. We can put things in our prime programming. We don't have to do that much stuff. Rongo Tongo. There's a lot of people that watch television during the daytime because they work second shift prime and third shift prime, and they don't see that big, big prime time TV spot. So I'm just suggesting that if we run bigger schedules, that we will not have to worry so much about ROI. But that said, it is now time to see the spreadsheet. We're going to see if we can. Okay, hopefully that popped up. And this spreadsheet is based on 7 key questions. And if you can see this, you can see there's a client tab and a justification tab. Here are the 7 questions. And I just did this for a furniture store. And I don't mind filling this out in front of the client, this tab, but I much prefer that you would fill this out and then go back to the station and fill this in. So how many people a week come in? Well, let's just make things up. We're going to play Rhode Island conference rules here. 150. How many people a week buy something? Let's say 65. Holy cow. We now, just those 2 questions, we know the closing percentage. What's the average sale? Pretty high-end furniture store. So it's $3,000. Now, knowing the closing percentage, how many people a week buy something, and the average sale, we now know that this furniture store does about $195,000 a week. Gross profit margin, I checked it out right before I jumped on to make sure it hadn't changed. It had come down. It used to be 45%, now it's 43%. How many times does a customer buy a year? Well, in a big furniture store, probably only 1 time a year. Gross profit per sale, $1,200, almost $1,300. Gross profit amount per week, $83,850. Now, this is where a lot of people say, well, tell me what your ad budget is. And I beg you not to do that because of two reasons. Number one, people don't have an ad budget. They have money for client acquisition and retention. They don't have an ad budget. And if you do ask them for an ad budget, guess what? They're going to lowball the bejeebers out of you. So I like to ask this, ballpark. What have you invested per month in the past 6 months to get to the kind of sales and traffic that you're seeing right now? So let's say they do $5,000 a month. Oops, sorry about that. How did I change it? My bad. I'm going to reback that. Okay. See, you only have to fill in the LSLs, gang, and I can't even do my own spreadsheets right. 5,000. Wow. Look what we now know. Monthly gross sales per ad dollar. For every dollar they're putting in advertising, they're generating gross sales about $169. And it's costing them about $7, about $8 to get somebody in the door. Well, that's great. But now let's also figure this out by month. And I like to ask by week because most people don't know by month. So to calculate by average month, multiply by 4.33. Where'd 4.33 come from? 52 weeks divided by 12 months is 4.33. And when you fill this information in over here, everything else calculates. Now, you can find, certainly on the RAB and I believe the TVB and in other sources, national ad dollars as a percentage of sales. And I think this is really important because based on what the client is currently telling us they're spending, that's not even, 0.59% ad dollars as a percent of gross sales. The average furniture store is spending about 8.2% of the gross, so they're underspending. But if this customer buys just one time a year and comes back over 3 years, 3 times, that's $9,000. It's a pretty good deal here. How much more in gross sales does this client want to do? A little bit more robust here. Let's say that they want to do $15,000 more a month. There it is. So the new desired monthly total, the new gross profit, the increase over the original gross profit, 5 sales needed, 12 additional prospects needed. Okay, Mark, that's cool, but we're not done yet because the justification tab takes everything that you put on that other side and brings it all over here. And then this is where the proverbial rubber meets the road. Are you asking for enough? Okay. How much do you want to ask for? Well, let's say that you want to ask for $10,000 a month. Okay. You're going to go big or go home. At a gross profit per sale, they need 13 sales to cover the up and the advertising. Based on what they told us, that's 29 prospects. Now, if you have reach and frequency, you could put in here how many people reach, but this is what's important. Does this make logical sense? Do you think if you ran a $10,000 schedule in a month with good copy and scheduled the right way, heavy frequency, heavy impact, that it might make sense for you to be able to do that? And that's for you to decide. Now, please remember, just because you have this now as a tool in your toolbox doesn't mean you should always use it. We did this one time in a market for a very nice coffee shop, had a lot of tables and stuff. But it turned out in order for them to justify that.
Hey, Mark, can we jump in just a second?
Yeah.
We got some messages coming in on the text line that I don't think your slides are moving.
Okay.
Brian, we're currently on the As Promised, the spreadsheet part 2.
Okay. Well, I'm actually showing the spreadsheet right now.
Yeah. And we got a lot of people hitting the text line saying they're not seeing the spreadsheet.
Okay. Well, Brian, I don't know. Can you do it from your end? Because when we practiced, and we did practice, folks, it did turn and work. Brian, do you have the spreadsheet there that you can put up from your end?
He's working on it, Mark.
He's working on it.
That's all right. Talk amongst yourselves.
Hey,
How are you?
Mark.
How you?
hey, Mark, here, can you, I'm going to give you control to share that screen. So let me stop share and see if you can pop that back, up on your screen here.
All right. Okay, I got Brian here. Let me see where I got. Okay, I'm going to say share screen. All right, kids, let me know if this comes up. Did that come up?
There it
Yep,
is.
there it is. Yep, we got it, Mark.
Hubba, hubba, hubba. Okay. Well, and since I know we're getting close to the end of the day here, I better be doggone fast. So let me be doggone fast here. All you got to do, folks, is fill in the yellow cells because I'm a lazy individual. So you take this client and it's based on 7 key questions. How many people a week come in? We'll now change it since you go, so we'll make it 180. How many people a week buy something? 75. That now tells us that we have a closing percentage of about 42%. What's the average sale? Yeah, went down a little bit, 2,900. That means that the average sale per week is $217,000. The gross profit margin for furniture has come down. It was 45%, it's now 43%. People buy one time a year because this is pretty expensive stuff. You don't have to even calculate this. It calculates for you automatically. The gross profit per sale, the gross profit per week. I don't want to ask what their ad budget is. They will lie. And people don't have an ad budget. They have a budget for client acquisition and retention. So ballpark. And I've dropped my hands like, ballpark. What have you spent per month in the last 6 months to generate the kind of sales and traffic? It's very, very important you say it like that. And we're going to say that they said $5,500. When I know that, I now know, very importantly, my monthly gross sales per ad dollar. For every $171 they're putting in advertising, they're generating $171 in sales, and it's costing them about $7 per prospect. Over here, we took that same information and we extrapolated it. We moved it over here, okay, to a monthly figure multiplying, or I should say divide, we're multiplying it by 4.33 because that's on average how many weeks there are per month. And here we have the prospects per month, the closing ratio. This furniture store does over $11 million a year at $941,000 a month. I got to tell you something, when I know something like that, I'm not going to go in and ask him for peanuts anymore. I mentioned this, try to always find out the national average ad dollars as percent of sales, if available. If you don't know it, if you can't find it, Gordon Burrell says it's about 5.9%. And down here, again, in the yellow cell, I'm going to put in what the desired monthly gross increase is. Instead of $15,000, this guy's going to go big or go home. 20 grand. Okay. So if he does 20 grand, that's new 8,600 more of a gross profit. He only needs 7 more sales, 17 more prospects. But that's not the end of the story, gang. We flip this over, and this is the justification page. Now, you do not, this is being recorded. So if anybody does this, I'm going to say, no, you don't. You don't do this page in front of the client. But it takes everything that you did over here, which again, I suggest you do back at the station. And then it comes over here and we say, okay, look, how much more does this client want to do? 20 grand. And down here, I want to mark down, am I asking for enough? I want to ask for $10,000. At $1,247 gross profit per sale, I need to help generate 15 sales to cover the cost of the additional gross profit and the advertising. Okay, I got to cover the advertising. I need 36 prospects. If I have reach and frequency, I could put in how many people it would take. But this is most important down here. Does this make logical sense? Do I really think I can do this? Because if I can, go. And if I can't, don't. Don't use this tool. Speed and Darren and everybody else has talked to you all day long about great tools to use. And some of the best ways to use the tool sometimes are not to pick it up. If I want to drive a nail, I don't use a saw. Well, the way I build things, I might, but that's what you want to be careful of. So as we get close here to wrapping this up, should you want this spreadsheet? email me, mark@rdrtoday.com, and I will be happy to get it to you here. Let's put lipstick on this pig right here. Sorry, guys. Now I have to go back here and slide this down. Okay. You're not responsible for a couple of things here, and I want you to remember this. And this is, of course, everyone remembers Roy Williams and his marketing bridge. And we used to always say, hey, you know what? Here we go. Seem plausible. Great. If not, all right. Very good. I don't know where that came from. Again, we're just moving right along. Anyway, in Roy Williams' marketing bridge, he likes to talk about what we are responsible for. And Roy used to always say, the only thing we're responsible for is the advertising. And I got to tell you, I don't think today that's enough. We have to be responsible for price value over here. And let me tell you what I mean by that. Someone gives you a price item thing to sell and it gives you a good schedule, but you're questionable. Boy, what would that, could I get that on Amazon less expensively? I mean, I think it behooves us to go with our client and say, let me see if that really is a good price. I think the other thing we need to be cognizant of is this, and this is where I think sometimes we get really scared about doing this, and I don't think we need to. And that is to say, look, you're a single location and you want to do a sale next week on microwave ovens. Well, you don't want to tell somebody, well, Jones Microwaves did a big sale last week, because it's not a good idea to share information like that. But what you can say is, as you are probably aware, Jones Microwaves did a big sale last week. Point out to a client that somebody else did a big sale right before what they want to do. And so help guide them as to what they are going to do with you so that they will get a good return on their investment, selling something that, is sellable and makes sense. If you have bad copy, you are not going to get good ROI. And as we end it here, the best thing I ever heard to address stalls. Excuse me, I'm dying. Well, that's going to sound really good on the recording. When you get a stall, don't be afraid to go up to a client and say, look, you have three choices the way I see it. You can do nothing. You can keep doing nothing. But you told me that if you didn't do something, that your situation wouldn't change for the better. But you can do nothing. Number two, you can keep on looking. By the way, you'll notice these are all very clever musical titles. You can keep looking for a better solution. Now your time's worth something, and there's all the people getting everything all set up and going through all this stuff again. Or number three, we can take what I brought to the table and you said makes sense, and we can put this in play. Shall we move ahead? And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, that has brought us to the end of our time together, at least from my end. So if anyone has any questions, comments, or snide remarks, other than Brandis, now's a good time to ask him.
Okay, Mark, we want you to know a great job, and we got some questions, but we want you to know what just happened on our end. You got choked and coughed real big, and then there was dead silence, and everybody here, we were going,
You scared us.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it was in the rider though that you were not responsible for anything.
I don't know.
Smart
I don't
move.
know.
Another rising above first.
Yeah. I don't know exactly what we were going to do, but we were like, okay.
Leavey died.
Anyway,
Leavey.
we're glad you're okay.
Yeah, so am I.
There's the question, the text line. Any questions for Mark? We're going to keep Mark on here for a few more minutes. Mark, I'll start out with this. And we had a question about objections. And I think that as salespeople, we're always trying to head off those objections. Doesn't ROI really remove a lot of the objections that we experience in many cases?
I think it can. I really think it can. I do think that there needs to be a greater emphasis today in addressing those objections and talking about what happens if you don't do this. How are you going to defend yourself? And one of my favorite things when people say, I don't need advertising, is to say, okay, hey, look, you know what? That's good. You've been a success. Yeah, that's right, I have. But can I ask you just a couple of questions? Yeah, what do you want? Well, when you started your business, did you think you could take
Hey,
business
Mark,
from
turn
other
your
locals?
camera on. Mark, turn your camera on.
Oh, man.
Everybody'd love to see you.
No, they-
Not laughing at you, Mark, laughing with you.
All right, stop videos. on now. All
Okay,
right.
keep going there. Keep going.
Okay.
Okay, you were saying.
So, yeah, so it's like, did you start your business because you thought you could take business from other local competitors? And I'm going to look at you like, well, of course I did. And you say, you know, that's great, but let me just ask you one last question. What are you doing to make sure that there's not somebody sitting up out there, plotting to take business from you because you're the big dog on the porch? In other words, sir or ma'am, what are you doing to defend that which you've worked so hard to get? And then shut up.
Yeah.
And that is a really good way to address an objection. And then when you have the ROI, look, let me show you what this will do to help you defend your business, perhaps more so than even grow your business.
No, very good. Brian, send it your way.
Yep. Hey, we've got lots of questions, Mark, of hey, how do I get that spreadsheet? Can I get access to that spreadsheet? So I just tossed up your email address, mark@rdrtoday.com. Email Mark. He'll send you that spreadsheet. I believe, is that correct, Mark?
Well, Brian, since you asked nicely, I guess I can. Yeah, of course I will.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Cool. Yeah. So if you'll, yeah. So again, just email Mark and he'll be in contact with you to get that spreadsheet in your direction. So we had a lot of questions on that, but let me go ahead and answer this. Sorry, questions are rolling. How would you handle a dissatisfied client without burning a bridge? Getting into sales, I'm really, I'm scared about disappointing clients and, for them not wanting to come back.
Well, I think one of the underrated things that we do in sales or should do is do a good customer needs analysis to find out really what the client wants to have happen. And every now and then, if they want to have 5,000 people at their store on Saturday morning, you can probably make that happen, but not with $250. I think this is so important. This goes back to the video testimonials. What works on your stations? And if we do things right, if we take some time and we do a written presentation, I think it's very, very strong because everything is based on, I'm writing a book and it's 3 words. There's 3 most important words in sales as far as I'm concerned, because you said. And when I can take this back to, you said you wanted to do A, B, and C, because you said this is why I recommended this. And then we check back and forth, is this working? Do we have any kind of customer service guarantee? And if you want, I have a sample that a lot of my stations use with their clients. And maybe that's important too. But a client plays a role in this. If you send people in there and they're not treated well, the merchandise isn't good. When I go to a big and tall men's shop, no, I really don't. But when I go to a regular men's store, about the only thing you can find for clothes for short people is in canary yellow or a green leisure suit. So my advertising sent them in there, but it's not my fault that I didn't, it's not the advertising's fault that I didn't buy.
Hey, Mark, I got an email from Chris Lytle a little bit ago, and he said, hey, remind Mark he's supposed to use businesses and not X's. So
yeah, well, I'm lazy, like I said, but thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chris.
Hey, Mark, I've got a question for you. Now, every salesperson listening will be using ROI going forward on new clients. But for all the sellers listening who are saying, I have clients on the air, they've been with me a while, and I didn't know to do this before. What's a smooth way for them to get this information and use ROI with those clients now?
That's a fantastic question, Brandis, because in all too many cases, we do that one first CNA and it's bye-bye. So, walk in and say, look, I want to see what has changed since the last time we really sat down in depth. So I got my yellow notepad. I don't have any packages or anything like that. And I'm going to work my 7 questions in there. I call them the big 7. I'm going to go back and figure this out. And I'm going to say, I'm going to take a look at it first back at the station and say, well, does it make sense for me to share this with them or not? Because like I say, if it's 3,000 cups of coffee in a town of 200, it ain't going to feed the bulldog, or in your case, kitty cat. But, I'm going to take a look at this and I'm going to go back and say, hey, did you know that right now, based on what you're doing, it's costing you X amount of dollars to get a person in here, that for every dollar you're spending in advertising, you're getting that. Well, I wonder what we could do to talk about decreasing what it's costing to get somebody in here and increasing what your dollar, what your sales per dollar is. But you got to have the information.
No, good stuff. Brian, I don't want to, anything else before we let Mark go, your way?
Yeah. So Mark, there's lots of questions. Again, email Mark if to get that form. I apologize for that hiccup that we didn't have that pulled up the entire time here. But Mark, one question that just came in: what's a good form of tracking return on investment when they're utilizing multiple marketing? Right. I mean, it's not just coming from our building, but from multiple sources.
Yeah. Well, that's why we ask, what was it, what have you been investing? And, we can't, unless they're going to give us 100% of that, I don't think we can be 100% responsible. But, some folks out there use attribution. And, sometimes that means that people hear or see an ad that we do on broadcast, but no one comes rushing in. However, there's increased traffic to the website. So maybe, if you're selling digital, you won't know what that means, and maybe you're using attribution. But I think sometimes it's just like, hey, I want to share this with you because you know what? I want to serve you better than anybody else does. Okay. So all these other people, they're afraid to show this to you. I want to show this to you. Now let's talk about, maybe you're doing some outdoor, maybe you're doing direct mail, maybe doing those things. I wonder if that's the best place for you to be. Let's take a look at what they're doing. And out of this $12,000 a month, how much are you spending here? How much are you spending there? There's a great temporary reallocation of resources. This is where I think sometimes we talk about, let's move some money around without you spending any more. Let's look at moving some money around so that you'll feel more comfortable that you're going to get a better ROI. And I'm the one that's bringing this up because no one else has the guts to.
Mark, we're kind of up against it. We got to get a couple of videos. Listen, buddy, great
Bye-bye.
to see you. Hope we get to see you in person soon. I know you know this one.
I'll see you before he will. I better see you before he does.
Hey,
I'll come out and see you in Holly real soon.
I hope you will. Thank you guys both so much. Thank you for being concerned that I didn't die.
Glad to have you still with us.
See you, buddy.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mark.
Bye-bye, guys. Take care.